I was asked to tell you about my experiences being the crisis manager, the flu commissioner for Belgium and highlighting the communication. On April 24, 2009, that was when WHO said, okay, there will be a pandemic, and that's when the thing started. And then you have one opportunity to do it right. I mean, day one is so important. In day one, you start your communication with the press, with the people, and you have to do it right. I mean, you have to go for one voice, one message. These first weeks, that's easy street. When you have no opposition and everybody needs news and they can come to you for news, you can bring quite a lot of neutral information, and it is picked up and it is well, the news is brought the way you bring it, and that is you can only do that in the first couple of weeks or months. If you have good pre-existing relationships with the media, you can try something else. We tried the following thing. We asked all of the anchors of the different TV stations, are you willing for free to participate in a sort of infomercial that you would pay for, all of you? And they said, yes, we'll do that. And that was hugely influential. And well, we would never be able, nobody would ever be able to pay for something like this. But if you have pretty good pre-existing relationships with them, then you can ask for a return favor. And answering the question of the day, no matter what the journalist's question is quite important. So we had a call center which was gradually becoming more and more populated, and almost hour to hour and later day to day, you have to get an idea what are the questions that the people are asking. And every day, these questions were delivered multiple times so that I could work them into the interviews no matter what the question was. And then you have to predict the future. That's hard because the future has not happened yet. Predicting the past is a lot easier, but you have to predict the future in order to prepare the public and not have an over exaggeration or an exaggeration of the information in the press. So I said, okay, Belgium, small country, we will also have H1N1 cases. Yeah? When you bring that, it is front page news. When then, a couple of days later, the first H1N1 case arrives in the country, it is the second time that they have to bring that news, so they bring it in a more muted and I think appropriate way, but you can only do that when you prepare the scene for that. And then you have to say, okay, well, we will have H1N1 deaths. Of course, that would be unavoidable. I used there Sir Donaldson's quote where he said that in the UK, by the peak of the epidemic, 40 people would die per day at the end of the summer. So 62 at that time million people in UK, 40 deaths a day. I worked it out for Belgium. That would be 7 deaths a day at the peak of the epidemic. I used that in the media. 7 Belgian flu deaths per day at the peak of the epidemic would be realistic. That is true in every year, even interpandemically. That is very, very conservative. However, talking about fatalities is important because when you say that, people say, wow, what do you mean? People die because of influenza? And that was a necessary step to take. And then, of course, a couple of days later, you had the first H1N1 death in the country. And the scene was set and it was already talked about. I went to the first couple of funerals. You have to be very quiet, sit in the back, but it shows that you care. The government does not do enough. The H1N1 vaccine will arrive too late and there will not be enough vaccine. Get it while you can. That was the first really atmosphere that was created. So not enough vaccine, get it while you can. So at that point I had to say, okay, I will be the last one to be vaccinated. I mean, you can all go in before me. You had to show them that you had, I mean, if the stockpiles, you had to walk there and walk in the rooms where you could show them that we have the vaccines and they are already in the country. A lot of reassurance was necessary there. I misused the fact that the top football soccer clubs in Belgium inappropriately and against all agreements vaccinated they made their soccer players priority people. So I said I can use that because if the population really believes that this vaccine is so desirable that even the soccer players would be dishonest to get their vaccine, I said, okay, I can play with that. So I made a big fuss about this. This is Van Ranst is raving mad. But it worked, and actually these vaccination campaigns by the GPs went really, really well. In a number of weeks, everybody could be vaccinated. And then, of course, people say, okay, the vaccine is unsafe, and then you get the swine flu hoax, and the vaccine could kill you, say no to the vaccine, that atmosphere starts. And then after the crisis, everybody becomes smart. Yeah? And you have to accept that from the get-go. And then the overall statement was, no, well, the government did too much, of course, because the number of deaths were disappointing to some people. And then all the books are written, and everybody uses all the data and forgets that you had to take the decisions based on a fragment of the data that were available, or that would be available later on. And then it was turned into a scam. People were really making money out of it. And I think the Council of Europe played a very bad role in this. This is Wolfgang Wodark, and I want to shame him actually, because he, in the Council of Europe, had a motion for a recommendation, fake pandemics, a threat for health. They basically said that all these virologists, vaccinologists, they all have money in their pockets. They're dishonest people. That has been tried to a certain extent, also in 2009. I mean, you saw Barack Obama being vaccinated. We do that every year in the hospital. In the hospital, the director and the vice director in their underwear are vaccinated. Yeah? That has a huge impact. So influencers are important.
Belgium called it the Mexican flu, as did many countries. It's a good name, but certainly from WHO perspective, we try to avoid implicating the countries. And I think that's part of preparedness. Let's be prepared for the next pandemic. What are we going to call it that we could all call it?
Well, we still talk about the Spanish flu, the Hong Kong flu, the Asian flu, and I've never felt that was extremely discriminating against, for example, the Spanish people. I agree and I understand it, but the different names that were used they're okay to use in scientific journals. That is fine. But to use that in communication with the public, it was over their head. Well, you talk about H1N1 and you lose 90% of the audience.
A couple of points there. The one he made about deaths is really the most important thing, I think, because what he's saying is you take a number which is normal, it happens every year, but it's not reported normally. And then you take that number and you start reporting it, and people think that there's something special about that number, right? And then, well, in this case, what we've done is we've added the effects of lockdown onto that, so that we've had some excess mortality. So you take that number and you add a bit more on top, and you say this is really serious, even though the excess mortality that you've seen has been seen before in history. We've had peaks of similar excess mortality in the past. And then, of course, if you don't take population changes into account, you can make the numbers seem even worse again. But he was absolutely making the point that you simply start reporting the numbers and people will get very concerned very quickly and ask questions. You mean people die from this? This little piece of video was very, very interesting.
So essentially, he was saying you take things that are happening really normally in other years, normal death counts, normal incidents of flu or an epidemic, and then you kind of give it the Alistair Campbell treatment.
Yes.
You sex it up, and then it becomes something bigger. You could do the same thing with a seasonal respiratory virus, I'm told. Turn it into a rock star, turn it from a regular busker to the Rolling Stones. And that seems to be what's happened with the coronavirus in 2020. It's become the rock star of seasonal respiratory viruses.